navigating labor disputes, HR strategies in response to employee revolt, lessons from the UAW strike. But before I get into the presentation, I want to just kind of know a little bit about the people that are here. How many people are head of HR, CHRO VPs? Raise your hand. Okay. How many people are in compensation, benefits, payroll? What about employee relations? Training? Oh, quite a few in training. That's good to know. Well, I started my career in HR as a human resources clerk, actually, and kind of moved into the talent management, talent recruitment area. When I walked out as an executive search consultant because I liked searching for people. But this one comes from just having been around in both non-union and union and seeing what made this strike different than all of the strikes that happened the 30 years prior to it, because it was different. And even though you hear people talk about it in the media, because they weren't in Detroit, they don't know what really happened. They don't even go by what they heard. So this is coming from just being on the front lines, and then also training frontliners the 5 years prior to this strike. So we kind of knew what was gonna happen with those frontliners. But I do have a disclaimer. Because whenever I do this presentation, I have to tell people I'm neither pro or anti-unions. This is a strategy session, so it's not a political session. So for those who want to argue politics, we're not here for that. We need 2 more hours or so for that. Secondly, it's about to help you learn strategies on how to improve HR, given the fact that you did have this strike, because it is going to have reverberating effects all over the world. This is the first reverberating effect. Whenever you talk to people about the South, the first thing the South says, we are anti-union. But you see that figure? That's not my figure. That came from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It says 52.1%, Tennessee was the fastest growing state in the United States of America for union membership. Well, given you didn't have that many union members, you went from 117,000 in 2020 to 178,000 in 2023. Didn't take a whole lot. But the point is, you still are the highest percentage-wise. So for those who say you're not a union state, that is no longer true. Today, here's what today's union members, when you talk about unions, most people automatically assume blue-collar, white males. But that's not today's union. Today's union, as you see, are 46% women, which is almost evenly half, 36% people of color. Now that figure is the one that gets me the most. And I'm gonna tell you why it gets me the most. I'm all over the country in the last year or so. I've been watching companies peel off diversity, equity, inclusion programs to say we don't need them. And you know what happens when you don't have them? Your staff will become unionized because they have decided on themselves, if management doesn't have DEI, we're going to create our own DEI, AKA union organization. And that's what those numbers are. But the part about those numbers that's interesting, African Americans only make up 12% of the working population, but they make up 13.5% of unions. So if you think you're going to ignore Black and Hispanics and DEI, I'm telling you, you will be unionizing. But here's the statistics that blows people out. 42% of the unions today have a bachelor's degree. See, for years we made the issue that unions are for frontline, non-degree people, and that people with degrees would never join a union, but they drive in growth, and we're going to talk about that today. 40% work in education and healthcare, which are your hospitals, doctor's office, and things of that sort. And only 21% work in transportation, utilities, and manufacturing. But that's what we've been mostly accustomed to, okay? So to give you some background history. Here's where you see the union membership is growing the most. Colleges and universities. Think about that for a minute. I have people who have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree who've joined a union. That sounds like an oxymoron, doesn't it? Until you dig into the numbers. I talked to the union at the University of Michigan, which is my alma mater, and said, why did you guys join a union? And you know what I learned? Those teaching assistants that go in front of undergrads, they only made $15 an hour. Did you know that? Because I know the bulk of my college education was in front of a TA. I very rarely saw a professor. But to think that those people are working incredible hours, and they were barely making minimum wage. And most of them are living in college towns. What do you know about college towns, anybody? Tell me a little bit about college towns. Anybody? Tell me what you think about a college town.
They're lively, but they very much go with the college, like the community and the college are very integrated.
Anything else anybody knows about who has college people? High housing costs. Any college town in America is the most expensive town in America. So can you imagine making $15 an hour and your rent is $1,200? That's a real phenomenon. So as you can see how universities have been unionizing in droves. Because I've got graduate students who are living in the most expensive cities and can barely pay their rent. They also, because they're young people, they're having babies. And the other thing about college town, you never have enough child care. So I got all this child care and all this rent, but I am making no money. That's a real problem. So as you can see, there's some notables on that list. Harvard, Yale. You go, why is that important? Because some of those people are going to be working at your company eventually as your management team. And when they come in the door, they're already pro-union because the union saved them. But nobody thinks about that. Or they're going to be your consultant at your major consulting firms. And as they give their advice, they're already pro-union because the unions help them out. So that's what's changing in this trajectory. But here's the part that I learned. You know, I always go full of information because I also want to know what region I'm going in. The bulk of your union growth the last 3 years was your universities. You see that? Middle Tennessee State University. I don't know how far it is from here. Tennessee Tech University, East Tennessee State University, Tennessee State University, and you got 5 that are in the middle organizing as we speak. Very different than the blue-collar worker. But here's what's interesting about the United Auto Workers. In Detroit, we call them the United Academic Workers. People go, why? Because 100,000 of their members belong to universities. So when they had this particular strike, what made it so different is that not only did they have their graduate members out organizing, individuals who weren't even part of the union because they're students were out there unionizing too. So imagine if I only got 400,000 members and then I added another 1 million who are not even unionized because they just go on with the flow. That's what happened in Detroit. And it made for an incredible experience to see all those young people saying, you know what, we're not tolerating this any longer. And that's what we had to deal with in Detroit. And that's the story you never heard. It became a young people against old people movement. Now, anybody ever seen any other movements where young people against old people? Anybody else saw that? Give me an example, anybody. Huh? Vietnam War, good one. Anything else? Anybody else? Civil rights movement. Anything recent? Yes, ma'am. Black Lives Matter. George Floyd was all about young people. They had said enough is enough, and they moved this country in a way that this country never had. I've seen civil rights movements during Black Lives Matter in all white neighborhoods. I ain't never seen it before. But it happened. Because when you put young people out there, they have energy, they have strength, and they're so resilient, they're gonna go the distance. They have never had that happen for a UAW strike. Oh, I should go back. Right now, you have Vanderbilt University. That's right down the street now, right? They're in the middle of being organized by the UAW. That's right in your backyard. So we're not talking about blue-collar workers. This is all college educated. Bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, getting their PhD. Anybody remember the American Dream? Somebody tell me, give me one of the items in the American Dream. What'd you say? White picket fence. Anything else? Own your own home. Anybody else? Is it one car or two cars? Two cars. Anything else in the American Dream? Kids in college, yeah. Anything else? Okay, nuclear family. Anything else? Y'all missing the biggest one in the room. What else is part of the American Dream? Equality, jobs. But what about a cushy retirement? I know I'm getting close to retirement. I'll be 58 this year, so that looks real good for me. So the American Dream, all they talked about my whole life growing up was the American Dream. That's why we're here, American Dream. We can have a nice wedding, nuclear family, homes, cars, and all that jazz. But I don't hear anybody talk about the American Dream anymore, do you? Anybody ever wonder why you don't hear it anymore? You're right, because nobody can afford the American Dream. So we stopped talking about it. But then I wanted to do some data, so how much does the American Dream actually cost? This is what I found out. $3.4 million over someone's lifetime. In a good day, if you're making $80,000, $75,000, $80,000 a year, you're only gonna make $2.1 million. So that means if you're making $80,000 or more, you can't even afford the American Dream. So imagine somebody making $15 an hour. They can't afford it. They can't afford it. Now you go, why am I talking about the American Dream? Because that used to be all you ever heard, is that we're gonna live this American Dream. Because when the baby boomers were 30, you see they had line 0 in green, that was their income. But when you see Generation X, which is my generation, notice we didn't nearly make as much money as baby boomers, percentage-wise. But look at millennials. Well, I know, it make you want to say, oh Lord, it does. But then when you look at the other generations, the greatest generation, the silent generation, notice how high their income is compared to everybody else's. The reason we don't talk about the American Dream anymore is because nobody can really afford it. And that's a problem. It's a major problem. But here's where it gets crazy. The UAW, who is known for organizing, nobody ever thought about them as being a marketing organization. Their whole strategy for this strike, we are saving the American Dream. And young people who really hadn't heard about the American Dream, because we stopped talking about it, went, yeah, why can't we live the American Dream? And then they portray corporate America. This is Sean, said he's saving the American Dream. And they portray corporate America as being the greedy executives. Now y'all should take offense to that because y'all represent corporate America, right? Are y'all greedy executives? But that's how they portrayed you. And you know what took the strike over the top? Is Mary Barra, the General Motors CEO, went on CNN and they asked her about her $30 million salary in compensation. And what came out of her mouth, even if people weren't pro-union, that day they became pro-union. Because she portrayed that greedy executive that he had been marketing for that you thought it was okay for you to make $30 million and pay your average worker 18. She should have stayed out of the news. And I can tell you, even people at General Motors who were executives had to say, she makes that much. And even though they didn't want to say it out loud at home, they were pro-union. So everybody was supporting the union. For the first time in American history since the 50s, 76% of Americans supported that union strike because of the marketing of this organization. And it's the first time that the union went on a full-scale marketing campaign that we are saving the American dream. But I'm going to ask the question, who created the American dream? Who do you think created the American dream? Who?
Government.
Anybody else? Who says corporate? Raise your hand. I'm going to say you're correct. You know why I'm going to say you're correct? I was born and raised in Flint, Michigan. We are a corporate town. We belong to General Motors, GM. They built their company there. They built the UAW there. Hell, most of the housing developments were built by General Motors. But instead of corporate America saying, wait a minute, you saving the American dream that we created? I would not let them co-opt us. But people allowed the UAW to co-opt the American dream as if it's a government function, when that was really created by corporate America. Now you think, why would corporate America create the American dream? Somebody tell me why you think they would. Who said buy more? Half right. Let me tell you why that comes to play. Henry Ford paid his employees $5 an hour. He was the first CEO in America that paid black people and white people the same amount of money. They went, ooh, he must love people of color. And truthfully, on record, they say he hated people of color. But what he understood, $5 is $5. If you're making $5, that means you can go out and buy a Ford car. Which then that makes us make more money, right? Because that's really what the name of the game is to make more money. Number two, why do you think the second reason they possibly created that function? Stability, maybe? If an employee is unstable, what happens? Somebody tell me, when your employees are unstable, because y'all deal with that all day long, what happens to your productivity? So in your whole job, be honest, your whole job is to create stability. So whatever they come to the work as, your job is to kind of fix it so they can be productive, so you can make more money, right? Okay, that's the only reason why the American dream is here. Because here's what happens when people don't have the American dream. You have financial stress. When people come to the job and they're financially stressed, they don't do a good job. If they're in a manufacturing plant, that day you have a lot of defects. If they're in an office, they make a lot of mistakes. But even worse, if they're financially stressed, a lot of times they don't even come to work. So you got high absenteeism. So corporate America realized that if the employee is stable, the productivity is much higher. And so you want employees to be stable. But I never hear corporate America talking about the American dream. Ever. But they used to do it all the time. So the UAW stole your thunder and used it for their own. And that's their whole mantra. We are saving the American dream. And this is why. I pulled this United Way survival budget for Davidson County. And when I looked at it, I went, oh, Jesus. The average rent for 2 children and 2 adults is $1,731. Is that accurate? That's a lot. So that means when you add in child care, that the average worker needs $40.04 an hour. That's from your United Way. So explain to me, if I have young people who are making $16.17 an hour, or $16.77 an hour, which is the median, how do they live? Help me, how do they live? They live with their parents. Multiple roommates. Gig jobs. Anything else back there? Do you have a lot of that subsidized housing?
Not enough.
Because I know in Detroit we don't have enough. It's almost non-existent. So that's what young people are stressed at. So if I got a Sean Fain who is standing on a podium and says, I am saving the American dream. You deserve to live without financial stress. Who do you think they're gonna follow? It ain't gonna be you. It ain't gonna be you. Because they are living a stressful life. Because they cannot live today. So this is what the UAW did, and I thought it was the most strategic thing I've ever seen in my life. They went from the starting wage before the strike, we call it BS, $18.04, to after the strike, $30.21. That is a 67% increase in starting wage. Can any of y'all compete with that? Can anybody compete with that? To start. That's a lot, isn't it? But notice the increase for the top wage didn't go up that much. Because he's in a marketing game. He understands that young people are under stress, and when a young person sees that they can get a potential by unionizing a 67% wage, what do you think young people are going to do? They're going to unionize. And so while they're unionizing everything. Starbucks, Amazon, museums, hospitals, healthcare, everywhere. You've never seen this much union organization discussion since the 50s. Because this is what the marketing strategy that he employed, is that I am going to save the American dream by increasing income. Now, you and I both know when you increase somebody's income, that does not make their life stable. Would you agree? Because I got a lot of people who make a lot of money and they still unstable. There's some other things that must happen, right? And so what that means, you all have to co-op and go back to the American dream. It says, we made that dream, but some of the things that you're gonna have to do are strategies, because you can't compete with that 67% increase. It's just impossible. But here's what you can do. You can learn about the employees, what's in it for me. If you were to walk into your facilities and talk to your frontliners today, do you know why they come to work? Does anybody? Tell me. Why does your frontliners come to work? Tell me.
To come and take care of our patients.
Okay, and so they love taking care of the patients. Okay, anybody else? Meaningful work. Who said pay their bills? Yeah, that's good. Anything else?
Benefits and pension.
Benefits and pension. But don't you think, have you even paid attention to your frontliners and just see how they operate? They like bling. Am I right? They like swag, bling, the thing. Yeah, because I've never seen so many poor young people have a $1,500 iPhone. I mean, you know where I'm coming from, right? Because they like bling. So at the end of the day, they want money. But here's what I learned. If you learn what's in it for me, you have a different employee. So we cater to those same students when we train them. And so I created this vision board app because I wanted to say, what makes them tick? Because they look and act different than what I did at that age. And what I learned is all the things we think about them are not 100% true. In our app right now, we have over 2,000 people so far in the app. You see what the number one goal they have on there? Entrepreneurship, investing in credit. Now, had somebody told me that that would be the case, I would have argued them down. Because one of the things that they know, because they're on YouTube a lot, that if you have good credit, you can get a lot of stuff. Because there's a lot of influencers on YouTube that are talking about credit. And so they are hip. I wasn't hip when I was that age, but they are hip that they got to do something about their investing in credit. How many of you all are running credit training in your companies? Raise your hand. What about investing? 401k investing. Okay. What about home ownership? So to me, that is a free strategy. It doesn't really cost you much. It's just about orchestrating. And particularly if you have 401ks or retirement benefits, you're already probably educating about the 401k and investing. Why can't you extend it to home ownership and credit? It didn't cost you anything but time. So that's the first thing that I noticed. The second thing that I noticed is notice you don't see pay up there right away. What do you see? It's number 2, career change. What's the difference between a pay increase and career change? Anybody? Is there a difference? Tell me somebody what's the difference.
Career change, you want opportunity and development. Pay is money.
You'll eventually get paid, but here's the thing that careers do. Careers give you much more stability. So say, for example, I can go into a factory and I'm on the line making $16 an hour. But if I'm a factory supervisor, or I'm the one that's fixing that robot, I know I got a job for a long time, right? And I'm probably gonna make $30, $40, $50 an hour. That's a whole different conversation. Am I correct? But how many of us have conversations with our frontliners about a real career? You do? Anybody else? Anybody else? Because I'm going to tell you what I found when I go across the country. Hardly nobody talks to their frontliners about a career. We assume that they want a temporary job. But here's the part that boggles me. How many people follow their turnover numbers? Where do you have your most turnover, may I ask? Your frontliners. They beelining out the door, aren't they? So my question is, if you see that your frontliners are having all this turnover, nobody ever asks, why are you leaving? Why are they leaving? Why are they leaving?
Well, money, mostly money for like EDS.
Okay. Are they leaving for a lot of money?
No,
Like $1.
not a lot. I fixed that problem, but I mean, it was like 60 cents. Next door, right down the street, and they ran out too.
And then the next one for the next 6 months for 60 cents. And then the next one for 6 months. So over 3 years, they got a $3 raise.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But that's happening. And the only way you could do that and stop that is to help them find a career. Now, I am perplexed because I go to a lot of companies, I see a lot of job descriptions. Every job description does not require a degree. But some of the people who are sitting on your front line are pretty smart. But oftentimes, because you don't really know who they are and what's in it for them, we go outside to look for new people rather than to groom a lot of our people from that front line. And we never think about it. And I'm going to tell you why, the story of what we're going to go through today. I went to HUD, because HUD has all these housing counselings. And I actually recruit students from there. People go, what do you mean? I do tech training in cybersecurity, Internet of Things, AI data analytics, because AI is hot right now. And I go there and I find a lot of young people, because they want to buy a house. And when I say to them, if you come to my school, I'm going to help you get to an $80,000 job. They will come and their job don't even know they're in training. Job don't even know. So you are not even competing, because by the time they decide that they're going to leave, you don't even know that they were getting ready to leave. They went through a whole year of training, and you have no idea what happened with your staff. And that happens all the time, right? This, I started looking at data and said, well, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm biased, because I'm in school and I have to recruit people. So I went and said, is there any data that says that frontliners want career advancement? See the data? Kahoot said 93% want more learning and development. 92% said they want from National Skills Coalition. 86% from Boston Consulting Group said employees want training in AI. 70% advancement opportunities, internal and external. And then 63% of the people, Pew Research said, left their job in 2021 because they had no opportunities for advancement. But you all have opportunities. You just don't think about that group. And I can tell you why. Because when turnover is high, you cannot see in yourself, why am I going to spend my money training that group when I know they're going to leave tomorrow? So here's what my solution to that. Because only 4% of them actually get promoted, but here's what can happen. We know that if people get digital skills, their pay is going to go up. So why not equip them with digital skills? Even in your own place. You think something simple as ChatGPT? That's a real skill that can benefit every company that's looking for AI and looking for that to grow. And as they get more and more digital skills, they automatically make more money. No union could compete against that. Because when young people start making a career, they don't move. They can stay with a company 16 years because now they have built a career. It has went from a job to a career. I want you guys to do me a favor. I want you to go on your phone at this website, and that's SENSEEI And I want you to open it and go to level 1. Go to the first one, maze. And I want you guys, we're going to play that one little game. And here's what you have to do with that game. All you need to do is to move the robot from where it is to the red bubble. Has anybody got to maze yet? Who passed level 1? What did you do to pass level 1?
Well, I put some things together.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're supposed to move them so they go to the destination, then to figure out how to get to the destination, how to move them over. So I put things together and connect the dots, and it did.
So you took a block and you stacked the blocks to move the robot.
I just kind of fiddled with it until it works.
Was that complicated?
It was, I'm a Gen X person, so it's probably harder than it should have been.
Okay. Did anybody else try it yet? What did you do? Tell me what you did.
Well, it was a little bit of like, I tried it didn't go all the way forward. I moved the block, didn't go all the way forward. I didn't really know, so I was like, oh, there's another block. But I didn't see them all at first, so, and then just tried it, basically.
And you got to the end, the red dot. Anybody else move the robot and got to the red dot? Tell me how did you figure it out?
Along the same lines, just looked at the screen, saw a lot of different options, clicked the green button first, it showed you what happened, and then moved the icon down at the bottom to the middle to next try with 2.
Did anybody have any difficulty playing that little bitty game? Did you? Be honest if you did, just raise your hand. Now tell me what the difficulty, just so I can get a sense. Help me out. Lady in red, what was your difficulty?
I didn't read the instructions.
You didn't read the instructions. Okay.
I just was like, I'm just gonna see what this does. And
Okay. That's fair. Okay. Anybody else have difficulty?
I didn't even get logged in.
Okay, I'm gonna leave that alone. Anybody else struggle with that? Are you still playing it? How's it working? That's a very simple game, but let me tell you about that game. When they get finished with one level of that game, they have just went through the steps of programming JavaScript with those blocks. It looks very simple, right? I'm gonna tell you how simple it was. I took a class at MIT. You got it done? See, but that was programming. Because all programming is an algorithm. It's creating steps for a computer. But we want to make it really complicated. And it really is not that complicated. It can get complicated. But if a basic frontliner can lay out blocks in a step, they can program. Let me say it again. They can lay out the blocks in a step and move it from point A to point B, that means they have the mindset of thinking like a computer, and they can program. Now, why is that important? You're looking for tech people, why look outside your company? Hire the people in your company. So you figure out ways to assess whether they can do the work and whether they can handle the training, and then you move them upward. Now, let me tell you what I've learned, because we use that tool as our assessment tool for our learners. They will do 20 levels. And I could tell you, if they can complete the 20 levels, I could teach them any computer language there is. But I can't teach them how to think in steps. And so I've been saying to employers, you are missing incredible talent right in your own ranks. And so if you're dealing with their problems, you might as well move them upward. You might as well get something out of it, right? But here's the thing that's the craziest about all of that. Oh, my presentation's gone. You don't even have to spend your own money. Anybody ever did anything with the Tennessee Workforce Development Department? Nobody? Oh, let me tell you about your Workforce Development Department. First of all, your department gets $40 million to train. Are y'all getting any of that money? And they do two things. They give the money to the corporation, but they also will give money to the individual individually. So if the young person wants to go do computer training, they don't spend their money. They go to the Tennessee Workforce Development Department and says, I want to take a technology class, and they give them this list of providers and say, if you go to any one of these providers, we will pay for your tuition. Or if the company says, I want to train apprentices internal, they go to the Workforce Development, ask for the money, they write you a check, and allow you to train your own apprentices. That costs you nothing. You already paid for it in your corporate taxes. You're just asking for your money back. That to me is the best gig ever. Under President Biden, this last year, a lot of times he doubled most of the state's money. So if you're not asking for that money, when you leave here today, go to the Tennessee Workforce Development Department and see what benefits that they provide for you. And it's a lot more than you think. The second thing that the Tennessee Workforce Development Department does, they have a little known thing called the Work Opportunity Credit. Anybody ever heard of that? Who uses that? Isn't that wonderful? It's a credit for you hiring people who are low income or disabled. You're hiring them anyway, right? So you might as well get credit. And all you gotta do is ask them, did you get food stamps or SNAP? Are you a veteran? Are you long-term unemployed? You just ask basic questions, you put it on your application, and when they check the box, the minute you hire them, you zoom in, get all the information, go submit it, and get your check. It's wonderful. The third thing that the Tennessee Workforce Development does, how many people hire returning citizens? Nobody? Oh, y'all missing out on a great, great benefit, and let me tell you why. When most returning citizens are on probation, they can't miss a day of work. So if you got a lot of turnover, you hire returning citizens, they're not gonna miss a day of work because they're on probation. So the Tennessee Workforce Development has provided what they call fidelity bonding insurance, that you can cover them so that you don't have any crime happening on your facility. They don't charge the employer $1. You fill out the form, they send you the insurance policy. It covers you for 6 months, $25,000 per person. So you can hire a whole bunch of returning citizens and have stability, because remember, they can't miss a day of work, they're on probation. All of that is paid for by your government dollars. Big deal, cost you nothing. And you're allowing them to move up the chain. The last thing, when you get all those three working, my most recent student taught me how important these were, because when he spent 4 years in prison, and when he came to us, he was making $10 an hour. He was temporary worker. He then became permanent at 20. Then he started our training. And when mid-training, I was happening to look at the company that he works at. I said, you know, they got an IT analyst job available. Are you applying? He went, no, I'm not ready. Oh, no, you're ready. We're going to coach you through the process. He goes in to meet with the tech team. They were, first of all, stunned to find out he had training to do this technical job, because they had no clue. He had been in training 6 months. When they interviewed him, they realized his skills were very on point, and they hired him. So he went from $20 an hour to $32 an hour. Do you think he's going to leave anytime soon? And so now he's training to be a process control engineer that will bump him up to $38 an hour. But notice he never left his company. That can happen for every employer when you look bigger at your team and find out what's in it for me. Because all of them have dreams. The question is, do you know about their dreams? And so we provide that vision boarding app for free, for you can use with your staff, with the data, as well as the Sensi games. Because when you start to look at your individuals, you will never ever have to worry about unionization. Because once they get the pay, they're not going to get unionized. But if they're not getting the pay, trust and believe unionization is on the horizon.